before we start next week, as soon as my notebook comes up. Okay? And by the way, I must say, Pope Pius XII helped me bridge that gap from the nonsense I was hearing at St. Gregory's Bible study to coming into the Catholic Church. So I give a lot of credit to this encyclical. Okay? It's Pope Pius XII, and he reigned during World War II. Yes.
Under the silent Pope.
Okay. Yeah, he's sometimes called the silent Pope. But one thing that he wasn't silent on is saving, if I'm not mistaken, 70,000 Jews in Rome alone. Either getting them out of Europe or hiding them. So, and he is honored to this day in Israel. If you go to the Holocaust Remembrance Museum in Israel, I believe it's in Jerusalem.
Yes.
There is a garden that's called, it's dedicated to the righteous Gentiles who helped the Jews during World War II. And in one of the, they put a tree in honor of these people. So there's people like Corrie ten Boom, whom you probably never heard, but she's a very famous evangelical Protestant who hid Jews in her father's clock tower in Holland during the war, and many others who did these kinds of righteous acts. Schindler, I believe, is part of that as well. Well, one of these righteous Gentiles is Pope Pius XII. And he's honored in this field for what he did to save Jews during the Holocaust. But it's his encyclical. Oh boy. Humani, I'll make it capital. Humani Generis. Okay? That's the name of the encyclical. Okay? And I believe he wrote this in 1943, but don't quote me on the date. Okay? But it's an encyclical about biblical scholarship, as well as an attack against modernistic thinking, of dismissing the scriptures in favor of modernism. Okay? So I would strongly recommend, it's not very long. Okay? Pope Pius XII is actually more well known for his other encyclical. I can't spell it all, so this is going to be a rough one. Providentias Deus, I believe. It's something to that effect, which was written in 1950, where he proclaimed the Assumption of the Blessed Mother by infallible consent, by infallible ediction. Providentias Deo, I want to say. Okay? That's what he's most noted for. He's the one that that defined the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin by infallible pronouncement. So that's him. That's what he's most noted for in his pontificate. But this is a little-known encyclical that has tremendous influence on our study today, as far as the scriptures. All right? Another little-known fact about Pope Pius XII. I believe he's going to be a saint one day. I really do. There's a lot about this man that is just underrated, beside his name being darkened about World War II. But one of the things that he did was he began the investigation in the Vatican to find St. Peter's remnants. He began that. It was under Paul VI that it was completed. So it took that much time to finally, but he was the one that began basically the search for St. Peter's relics. Yes?
What were the relics?
His bones.
Oh, okay.
His ossuary. It's where he was buried. Because St. Peter's was always built over the assumption that it was St. Peter's tomb, but there was no record of it. It's like, where was it? And so it was Pius XII that began the excavations under the Vatican in search for the original site of where St. Peter was buried. And it was under Paul VI that it was finally discovered and pronounced as these are the relics of St. Peter. And as recently as, I think it was a year ago or more, Pope Francis displayed the relics in an open-air audience that he had. He showed the relics of St. Peter. Very, very rare for that to happen. But he had them out there in Rome for the people to see and venerate. So anyway, so that's just something to be aware of. I'll bring this up next week when we get there. So back to this. Okay. So again, remember when Easter was? Remember Easter?
April.
Yeah, it was in April, about a month ago.
April 21.
We're still in that Easter season. Do you realize that? Do you realize that Jesus is still walking and talking to his disciples? And he has all this time. That's why we keep meditating on this mystery, is because he is still alive. He is still showing, he's still walking on the earth with his disciples since Easter. You realize that? And when is he going back up to heaven? Next Thursday. Ascension Thursday is next Thursday. So next week, we're still going to be meditating on this mystery here. Because he doesn't go back to heaven until Thursday of next week. Do you realize that? See, again, we need to follow the church's wisdom. The church is teaching us that Jesus rose on Easter, but he stayed on the earth all this time talking to his disciples. It just wasn't a, here I am, bye guys. See ya, don't want to be ya. And he's gone, and then people wonder, well, did we really see him? Was he a ghost? Was he a figment of our imagination? Were we just hysterical? No! He has been walking and talking to his disciples all this time. So after the initial shock, you have to come to your senses and go, what's happening here? Am I really talking with Jesus, who was crucified under Pontius Pilate? At Passover, am I really, is this really happening? And the answer is yes. And it's like, so this is how convinced the apostles were, and all of those around him who saw him. Remember, we read in St. Paul's letter to the Corinthians that over 500 people saw him at one time. So he was drawing crowds again. I mean, that's remarkable. I can only imagine what I would have thought if I had been there at that time. I really wonder what I would have thought. You know, it'd be hard to say, this is nuts, you know, this is crazy, but there he is. You know? And it would give me second thoughts to think, maybe is he who he says he is? And who does he say he is? God. It's God Almighty. Only God could do this. Only God could do this. Remarkable. Remarkable. And again, this is a remarkable book. This is not like any other religious text in the world. It just isn't. And that's partly what we are studying here. But one other, I told you I had a bit of good news.
Yes.
So I want to show you this. It's a new website. Our new website. Here is our theme verse. Here we are over here. Here's our beautiful church. This is in the beginning stages. It still needs a little dolling up, but we can thank Alvaro for doing this for us. He's not here today, so you can save your applause and a nice big chocolate cake, you know, like at my birthday party. I hear that he loves that. I'm just saying. But yes, I've told him to change this picture. But here's me. This is when we were at the Dead Sea Scroll exhibit. Do you realize that this was 4 years ago? 2015, our Bible study went to see the Dead Sea Scroll exhibit that was on loan at the Science Museum. It was a beautiful exhibit. And part of the exhibit was a block of stone from the Temple Mount. One of the blocks of stone that was there, that was from the temple area. It was amazing. It was just stunning. I couldn't believe this was an actual block from the temple. But anyway, so that's me. I don't like this picture. It looks too casual. I gave him one with a tie. And my Wesley Crusher t-shirt. I love it. But this is my testimony. So I summarized my conversion and my how I had stumbling blocks coming in and what's happening now. So if you want to read about it, you can. But here's the other side of it. Our videos of all of our presentations are now being uploaded on a weekly basis, and we can thank Nelia for that, and Mayan is sitting in for her today, recording these videos that she gives to Alvaro, who then uploads them. So if you want to go back and remember and hear Bible study again, or if you miss a week, we now have a forum in which to do it. I will eventually, I promise you, tell the church bulletin to change the name because we have the old address on there. But Alvaro just showed me this recently. He says it's just the beginning. It still needs some, like I said, dolling up, but this is the beginning. So I want to just thank him now, and I'll thank him again later, and I hope you will too. And the purpose of this is an evangelistic tool. If you have friends or people that want to come to Bible study, but they don't know what to expect, this is a good way to introduce to them what happens. So that's what I would say. So, and it's fairly up to date. You know, I mean, 5.7, that's pretty good. And I love the way that he's labeled, and this is our overview. This was my message on the resurrection. Jesus' journey through the last week, the Holy Week, so if you missed all about Holy Week. And a few on the Song of Songs. I think, I'm curious to know, what were the questions about the Mass? I don't even remember what I said. Sometimes I look back on some of the Bible studies and I go, boy, that's really good. And then I go, oh, that's when the Holy Spirit is speaking. It's not me that's talking. It's amazing. It's amazing. Sometimes I go, when did I learn that? I get amazed myself. So there you are. It's far from perfect, but it's a start. And it's something. So again, I want to thank everyone who's involved in starting this up. It's not my doing, maybe a little prompting, but this was originally started, this idea was started by some of the young adult Bible study people several years back when I first started the book of Revelation, way back when. So what's that, more than 2 years, 3 years? When we made the switch from Thursday night to Tuesday night.
2 years, a year.
it had to be more than that because I took a year and a half to go through just Revelation. And we had done the Song of Songs since then. So it's at least 2 years. You say 3? 2 years for sure. Anyway, the point is, someone suggested that, would you mind if I got videotaped so that I could upload? And I said, I don't mind, but I don't want to be in charge of it. I said, if it's something that you want to do, you do it. And so they did. And now we have this revived again. So the website is quite easy to remember. It's stcharlesbiblestudy.com. Saint is spelled out. So give you a moment if you want to write that down. Like I said, it's in its nascent form. Alvaro does this all by himself. If anyone wants to help him out, please contact him to help out with that. I don't want him to feel burdened by just doing it all by himself. I think part of what happened last time when this happened with our old one is that it fell into disrepair because other people weren't engaged in it. And it was just one person. When one person stopped, then it all stopped. So more people that are involved in this, it'll keep its vitality. So yes, contact him when he's here next week and say you would like to help in some way.
For cross-training.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, before we get started, I want to review what we've learned so far. Keeps you sharp. First of all, what's the Torah? First 5 books of the Bible. What are those books called? Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Yes, those are the 5 books. They're also called the law. The Jews the word Torah is a Jewish word. It means law. Okay? First 5 books of the Old Testament, otherwise known as the law. So Genesis through Deuteronomy, the most revered books in Judaism. The most revered of all of the Old Testament is these 5 books. What are the 2 views